So yeah, as the title says, the Lakers should not mess around with the Nuggets. They better not disrespect the Nuggets, because the Nuggets have demanded that we look at them as a serious threat. Jokic and Murray. These guys are just playing great. Murray has elevated his status in the league, and the old version of Jamal Murray, which was the guy before this playoff run, I would imagine would maybe have plus 20 points maybe once or twice in this series. I'm expecting this new Jamal Murray to be a constant problem for the Lakers that they're going to have to run some stuff for. This would have been a perfect time to have Avery Bradley, but of course he chose not to be in the bubble. And in the case of Jokic, I mean, look, the threes, the post-ups, the playmaking, and the going off the dribble, and the way the Clippers doubled Murray, which allowed Jokic open opportunities off of short rolls. If you double Jokic, that's usually a disaster when the Nuggets get that cutting game going and stuff. And also he just throws it out to open shooters as well. The Lakers, they got to be good. This is not going to be a just show up and win sort of thing. And the Nuggets have clearly proven that to beat them, you have to beat them, which is pretty obvious. But you could argue the Rockets kind of beat themselves against the Lakers once the Lakers made their adjustments to Houston, you know what I mean? So anyway, we talk about the basketball stuff. The first question I have, speaking of that Rocket series, is actually similar to the question I had going into that one, which is, do the Lakers play AD at center more? Do they go with two bigs a little bit more often? What's going to be the answer? Well, I think the first thing you think about is how good can Anthony Davis defend Jokic? My guess would be probably pretty well. He can run out to the three-point line. He's going to need help there. I mean, if Jokic is popping all the way out there, then it's not as if AD can slow down Murray on the initial screen and then run out to Jokic every time, but I would give him a better chance than most players to be able to do that. Another thing real quick on the Murray-Jokic pick and roll is, will the Lakers have LeBron play on Murray, so then if they run that, they can switch it, and now it's LeBron on Jokic? I think we could see that, but first to just talk about AD a little bit more. So I'm giving AD a pretty good chance to defend Jokic's jump shots. As far as in the post, I feel like Jokic can gain some good position on AD, but I also think AD can contest Jokic very well when he starts doing the turnarounds and the hook shots and everything and not fouling him. That's going to be a big thing. And when it comes to defending the Jokic post-up, it might honestly just be a matter of force him to make a shot and try not to foul him, because it's just so difficult to bring help on him that it might not even be worth it. Now, even off of no help, the Nuggets can still get baskets from Jokic's passes because of the cutting, right? And the Lakers, they've just got to be ready to just kind of stay glued to their guy and not really get into the passing lane, because Jokic will still beat you, but more so just create a wall between your guy and the basket so he just can't run to the rim, you know what I mean? So when MPJ and Gary Harris and Murray and Torrey Craig and Millsap and whoever you want to take is cutting, just all these Lakers, I think, need to be as good as you possibly can be at defending cuts. And I think the Nuggets also can get creative with some off-ball screens to throw the Lakers off in those situations when Jokic is at the elbow or in the post or whatever it may be. And that's probably going to force some switches. And I mean, there's a lot of similar-sized players in this series to where I don't think that would be too scary for the Lakers to do. You know, it's like, what would be a size advantage? Like let's say Alex Caruso got switched onto Paul Millsap because he had to switch on a cut. I don't think you're really freaked out about that one, you know what I mean? I guess the one scary one could be if a smaller guy was on MPJ. But then again, when it comes to the Lakers' ability to defend those cuts, and this gets back to the two big man thing, will it be better to have AD and JaVale or Dwight out there, or just AD? You know, the obvious thing would be, well, the Nuggets are going to use their speed and stuff to try to get open off of Jokic post-ups, so it makes sense to have more speed out there to counter it. But there's also the idea of, what if you had JaVale or Dwight on Jokic? And I think they would have some chances to defend him in the post. Probably more so Dwight in the post and then JaVale when it comes to the pick and pop stuff. And that would allow AD to stick on someone, and we know AD can handle that. And this is going to bleed into how the Lakers can attack the Nuggets, which I want to save for a little bit, but I will say, if you're going to put another big man out there, that does give a guy for Jokic to kind of hide on a bit, you know what I mean? Because if you're running a bunch of screens with JaVale or Dwight to try to get Jokic looking bad in the pick and roll, then that's a lot of possessions that are not going to Anthony Davis, so you could view that as a win for the Nuggets, unless they would put Jokic on Rajon Rondo or something and hope for the best. He was making threes against the Rockets, as we remember. But anyway, back to the Lakers defending the Nuggets. So with Jokic, I don't know, man. I mean, the other thing the Nuggets are so good at, and I think I bring this up every single series with them, is they find ways to get Jokic switched onto smaller guys. And a lot of the time it'll be like Jokic will have the ball at the free throw line, Murray sets a screen for him, and I mentioned earlier you might have to put LeBron on Jamal Murray to get ready for that play. Another reason why putting two bigs out there could be frightening, because then it might get JaVale or Dwight switched onto Jamal Murray. I mean, I have questions if the Lakers can defend Murray just in one-on-ones throughout the series, let alone if they get a switch that they're not a huge fan of. I also say this every time, but Murray's really good at starting the pick and roll with Jokic, getting the big man to commit to him, and then bringing it back out. That's the way they get that switch. And if that's JaVale or Dwight on Murray, then that's not a good thing for the Lakers. Whereas if it's Anthony Davis, then he's got a better chance. And I'm just trying to think of other ways to counter that besides switching. I mean, it's really tough to trap kind of anybody on this team. Trapping Jokic, probably not going to work too well. Now, Anthony Davis does have the size to hopefully bother Jokic when he's trying to pass the ball. Because if you trap him with two 6'9" dudes, it doesn't matter. He's still going to be able to pass over them, you know what I mean? So maybe AD can bother Jokic in those scenarios. Again, the idea of Jokic has the ball and Murray is setting a screen for him, usually within the three-point line. That's how they like to do that. But even so, I just think the Nuggets, they're so good at playing off of Jokic, and he's so good at, passing, obviously, to where I think if you're going to trap, you've got to really, really trap, and you've got to bother the hell out of him. And again, maybe AD is the one guy who's got the size and the speed and all that and the length to do that to Jokic. But if there are going to be times when you're forced to switch, then that's when it gets really scary to put a prototypical point guard in Jamal Murray, because if they do force the switch and you got a real small dude on Jokic, then you're going to have some problems. I mentioned prototypical point guard. The Lakers only really have one classic point guard on the roster. So, I mean, whether it's Danny Green or KCP or Caruso or Kuzma, whoever the hell is now on Jokic, that's just going to be a problem. So they got to find ways to not allow that to happen. Is it possible that we will see some hedging on pick and rolls? I mean, usually nowadays it's either switching or drop, but is it possible that we would see, let's say it's Anthony Davis defending Jokic, he'll step up on Murray real quick to give, we'll say the other guy's Danny Green, a second to get back to Murray, and then AD can get back over to Jokic? I mean, it's a lot to ask for, but the Lakers were really good defensively, and AD can kind of do anything out there, so I don't think it's insane to try it out, or at least think about it. And I did mention it earlier, but I feel like if you try a drop coverage, not a lazy one, but like an actual good one where you're just kind of egging the guy on to take a 15-footer but not a wide-open one, even then Murray will just do his thing where he dribbles to the side a little bit away from the screen, and now the big man's got to come out with him, and there you go. You've forced the Jokic switch. So it's going to be very interesting. To think about the other Nuggets for a little bit, mainly Michael Porter Jr. on offense, I feel like the Lakers, could you trap MPJ? I don't even know if he's in screens like that to get enough opportunities to trap him, but could you throw some double teams at him? Not like super hard double teams, but enough to freak him out a little bit. I think you could try it. Given how good the Lakers were at doing that against Houston, I think it's fair to trust they can do that to a guy like MPJ. The reason why I'm not as confident against Jokic is because, number one, he does a lot of it in the post, and it's tougher to just double team a guy there as opposed to James Harden 30 feet away from the rim. But two, Jokic is still moving without the ball. You know, Harden, you double team him, he passes it off. He's not doing anything now. Whereas Jokic still finds ways to get involved. He's still moving. I mean, hell, there was that one play with the Clippers where he had an off-ball screen around like the free throw line, I think it was, and then I think that dude then cut to the rim, and then Jokic at the free throw line just threw a bullet right to him under the rim. So I think I was just talking about MPJ there, but for whatever that all was worth. Yeah, MPJ, he's probably just going to have to make some shots. Is he going to be able to do some one-on-one stuff and bail the Nuggets out of some possessions that might not go great? I don't know. I mean, I don't think he was going off against the Clippers. His Game 6 was pretty good. 13 points, had some good percentages, but that game was sandwiched in between two games where he didn't really do much as a scorer. So, I don't know. I don't know how much MPJ we're really going to see in this series, not in terms of minutes, but in terms of stats and all that. But yeah, I think Denver's offense will give the Lakers some trouble because Jokic is going to give anybody trouble. But if there's any team that I trust and any player that I trust to find ways to deal with Jokic, it's the Lakers and it's Anthony Davis. If we go to the other side, Nuggets defending the Lakers. I mean, the Nuggets defense has been the reason for some of their struggles in this postseason. Obviously, their defensive rating against the Jazz was terrible until they flipped the switch and it became very good. So this is going to be pretty obvious, but I think the Nuggets are just going to have to nail all the fundamentals defensively in this series. You know, don't get beat on the offensive glass. Don't turn the ball over to give them easy baskets. Keep the fouls down as much as possible and get back in transition. If they nail all four of those things, which is not a guarantee, then I think they have a shot. But here's the thing. In the first two rounds, the Lakers pick and roll didn't totally come out like that. Because against the Rockets, they're just going to switch everything. And against the Blazers, I don't know. It just didn't happen like that. They didn't really need it in the end. If there was ever going to be a series in which the LeBron AD pick and roll was just going to happen possession after possession after possession, it's right here. Because how the hell else are you going to deal with Nikola Jokic besides attacking him defensively as much as possible? Now, if you're going to go with the two big guys, it makes it tougher. I'm not really making a case for the two big guys as I talk about this video. It was my biggest question, but now as I say it out loud, I'm like, why would they run two big guys in this series? I don't know. You never really know with this stuff. But yeah, man, make Jokic play defense. Pretty much it. I think if he drops too hard, then he's not really a rim protector. I think LeBron's going to get a lot of easy buckets off of that because he'll just kind of jump in the air and just glide right by Jokic pretty much. If Jokic steps up too hard, LeBron's going to run right by him. Jokic has to find this perfect middle ground where he's kind of up but not too up, which doesn't even mean that it's going to work. I mean, it's still LeBron James we're talking about, but I think that's your best chance. Now, as far as whether he can do that and then AD does not get a smaller guy switched onto him or whatever, I don't know. That one's going to be tough because the Lakers could pull the same thing the Nuggets like to do. Like LeBron could back it out once he's got Jokic switched onto him. As far as who the guy switched onto Anthony Davis now will be, if this happens, it'd probably be like Jeremy Grant. I think Grant is going to be the guy defending LeBron a lot of the time. And, you know, just to back it up a little bit, would the Nuggets choose to fight like hell over the screen or whatever to not give the Lakers just the LeBron AD two-man game? Sure, but it's easier said than done. Now, this is going to require that LeBron and AD do run the pick and roll a whole bunch of times, which, you know, based on how the season has gone for the Lakers, granted, the season has been technically like a year long at this point now, but people were always saying, what the hell, run more pick and rolls with LeBron and AD, and they just haven't done it to that level. So there's a chance they don't do it because they just haven't really done it. And if it's not going to be that, then I think it's going to be times where AD is going to have to hit some tough mid-rangers because, I mean, who's going to be on him? Is it going to be like Millsap? They could have Millsap on LeBron, could have Jeremy Grant on LeBron. I don't know. The other guy's probably on Anthony Davis. And I guess you do your best PJ Tucker impression. It didn't work for Houston, but maybe if you brought some extra defenders on AD, it could work. The other thing, too, is I do think the Nuggets will take a page out of Houston's book and do a little bit of that zone defense thing when AD is posting up. Because when they have all those shooters out there, you can kind of arrange a zone in a way to where it's tough to make the pass. And I guess this would be the case for the extra big guy, is if you put that dude in the dunker spot on the opposite side of AD's post-up, it forces the Nuggets to have to stick with that guy, and then it makes it tougher for them to zone out the shooters. Now, when I talk about these AD post-ups, I should also mention the Lakers could take a page out of Denver's playbook and have some cuts off of AD. I mean, AD's a good passer. If you get LeBron cutting a little bit, or whoever it would be, Kuzma, KCP, Danny Green, Caruso, Morris, I think you can have some success. That could also be an okay counter to Denver's zone if they're not really prepared to defend a guy who's now running to the basket. So I guess if you're not going to go with the two bigs, but you still want to force Denver to have to do something besides just stand there off of an AD post-up, then that would probably be the way to do it. Now, I guess the Nuggets might just bring an extra defender on AD the entire time and just double team him in the post or whatever. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. Other things, the Lakers offense is probably going to have random moments of looking really slow and nothing happens because they just seem to do that a few times every game where it's like, oh, no one's moving on this possession? Okay, cool. So for whatever the hell that's worth. If we talk about the Lakers shooters, this is very obvious, but they got to make shots. And I feel like I've said that for every series, and I'm going to keep saying it all the way until the Lakers either win the title or are eliminated. We just got to see if their dudes can just make you pay for bringing extra guys on LeBron and AD. You don't really have any other choice. I mean, if your choice is between LeBron getting 70% opportunities at the rim, because that's what he shoots at the basket, I'm pretty sure, or AD doing whatever, or a Danny Green relatively open three-pointer, it's a pretty obvious pick if you ask me. I did mention Michael Porter Jr., mention him again. Do the Lakers go and hunt him? I think it's possible. The interesting thing, though, is usually LeBron hunts dudes who are like 6'3". MPJ's got the size. I don't think he has the fundamentals at all to deal with LeBron, whether it's that he would foul LeBron or he just can't stay in front of him, whatever it would be. But he's at least taller than LeBron, so for whatever that's worth. If Monte Morris is out there, you go at him. I don't think Gary Harris can defend LeBron, especially in the post. I guess Millsap's been the LeBron guy before, and he couldn't do it, and now he's older, so I don't give him any chances. Jeremy Grant is probably your best bet. I mean, Torrey Craig maybe, but I don't know. I think Jeremy Grant's the guy, and sometimes you're just going to have to put him on LeBron and hope for the best, besides bringing an extra defender from the opposite corner or something and then doing a little bit of zone defense on that side of the floor. This is the conversation we have about LeBron every single postseason series. And it always goes the same way. LeBron gets the upper hand. So unless the Nuggets are going to sign Kevin Durant and simply score more points than LeBron's team, it does still look tough at the end of the day to beat the Lakers. I guess something else to think about is, will the Nuggets double team LeBron, which teams don't really do. Hey, maybe, I mean, if it forces KCP to take an extra three ball as opposed to another LeBron ISO or pick and roll, then possibly. But if that happens, then I think LeBron will then go into the post, where it'll be much more difficult to double team him. So, yeah, that's all I got. I think I'm going to go with the Lakers in probably 6 games, I guess. Denver's good. I think Denver's going to be able to score some points in this series. But for the Lakers, I mean, it's pretty basic take. They got LeBron and Anthony Davis, you know what I mean? Like I don't know if the Nuggets are going to be able to guard either one of them. And I think Anthony Davis is probably like one of the few dudes who can give Jokic some trouble. And the Lakers defensively overall, they're really good, and they've proven to adapt when they had to against Houston. But Denver's good, no doubt about it. So I think it'll be a good series.